Hello, welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Friday, October 22nd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking Chiefs today and their game on Sunday at the Tennessee Titans. Kansas City has a titanic task of slowing down Titans running back Derrick Henry, who's running roughshod over NFL defenses this season. But Tennessee has to figure out a way to stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense, which looked terrific last weekend at Washington. On today's show, star columnist Sam Mellinger and beat writer Sam McDowell and Herbie Teope discuss these topics and more. The show started as a SportsBeat Live and is now presented as a SportsBeat KC podcast. Let's get started. Good morning from a chilly Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly conversation about the Chiefs with the reporters and columnists who know them best and with you. Please send us your questions and comments and join in the conversation. You know, guys, Herbie Teope is here, Sam Mellinger, Sam McDowell. Hope everybody's doing well. Vahe Gregorian on assignment. Really, he is on assignment. So not going to be with us this morning, but somehow we will muddle through this show. The last time the Chiefs and the Titans played, it was good news for the Chiefs. Doesn't always work out that way when the Chiefs and the Titans play. In fact, much more often than not, it has gone against the Chiefs in recent years. Herbie, I was reading your breakdown of the game, and you reminded me that it's funny. Andy Reid seemingly has success against everybody throughout his career with the Eagles and the Chiefs, except for one franchise. And it just happens to be the one the Chiefs are playing Sunday.
Yeah, the Tennessee Titans. Regular season, Reid is 1-7. But, when you take the playoffs into consideration, he's 2-8. There's something about the Titans that Reid hasn't figured out. And you're right, 200-plus career wins. And it's the Titans that give him the most trouble. So we'll see how this shakes out in Nashville.
Yeah. So, listen, those two playoff appearances, pretty notable, both of them. One, the Chiefs, of course, had a big halftime lead and lost it all in what ended up being Alex Smith's final game with the Chiefs, that wild card playoff game after the 2017 season. But the other one, the 2019 AFC Championship game, won by the Chiefs after falling down, I think 17-7. Chiefs ended up winning that game by 11. Of course, that was the game where Patrick Mahomes had the great rushing touchdown just before the end of the first half. But speaking of rushing, Tennessee, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but they have a running back named Derrick Henry, who can do some good things. He's done a lot of great things here this season. He's been over 100 yards each of the last 5 games. 3 rushing touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. I think he's the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson way back when to have 3 rushing touchdowns in 2 straight games. So the guy is a beast. The Chiefs know him well. I think any team that plays him has bruises, and Chiefs still have bruises from the last time they've played Derrick Henry. So I guess this is a good way to get into, this is kind of an obvious key, right, for the Chiefs on Sunday is to somehow limit Derrick Henry's production. Sam McDowell, I know you wrote a little bit about this today after hearing what Steve Spagnuolo had to say. It's one thing to say it. It's going to be difficult for the Chiefs to get it done.
Yeah, what impresses me most about Derrick Henry, I mean, the obvious combination of speed and power is rare, but the durability that he's had, the longevity that this run has gone on for him. 2 years ago, I think he had 305 carries, which is a lot. And then last year he had 375 carries. And the fact that his body has withstood the beating that he's taking, because it does take such massive hits to bring him down, and his body is still standing here, and he's still just as good, if not better, than what he's been. I feel like 2 years ago when the Chiefs went to Tennessee and he had that massive run against them up the middle of the field, that he was still sort of becoming Derrick Henry at that time, because the previous few years he was, for whatever reason, kind of a part-time back. He was the starter, but wasn't getting the workhorse carries that he gets now. And we saw him play in Tennessee 2 years ago, and it was just, I mean, wow, this guy looks unstoppable at times. Of course, the Chiefs did kind of stop him in that AFC Championship game later that year with a strategy that they called "kill the engine," and that's what we heard again yesterday, which is you got to take out his legs because he's too big for you to be tackling him above the waist, and the combination of those two things is leads you to believe that the Chiefs could have trouble with it because they're not a good tackling football team right now.
No, which helps explain their rushing defense, giving up 133 yards a game on average. Heck, I think the Chiefs would give Derrick Henry 133 and call it good, don't you, Melly?
Yeah. He's on pace for like 2,200 yards and something like 28 touchdowns. It's just insane. You talked, I think, Blair, you said it's the obvious key, and I guess this is the obvious key within the obvious key, but I think he's going to be great, right? But you just have to stop him from being legendary. Like, he's going to get yards, but I think a really important thing is to keep him from getting, what was it, like a 76-yard touchdown on Monday night that he had. When they played in Nashville a couple of years ago, it was like a 68, 66, something like that yard touchdown. It's hard to do because it's just one cut and he gone, and, the safety took a bad angle on Monday night with the Bills. And I think it was a linebacker or safety that missed a tackle that game in Nashville. So if you can just like keep him in front of you, because you mentioned that AFC Championship game, the kill the engine strategy. And I think his longest run in that game was 13 yards. And so, look, he's going to get first downs and he's going to move the ball and he's probably stiff arm somebody at some point. But if you just sort of keep him in front of the safeties and keep him from breaking a long one, I think that's a win.
You got to take him down. That you mentioned kill the engine. Of his 700-plus yards rushing, 587 of it come after initial contact. You put that number in perspective, that alone would lead the league in rushing right now. Nick Chubb has like 530, and that's with contact. You got to get this guy down. I mean, 587 yards after contact is just insane. And the Chiefs defense, obviously, as we know, has had their issues with tackling. And, this week, they're going to have to come up with a quick fix against Derrick Henry.
He's like the one guy that, there's all this talk, especially recent years, is how valuable is a running back? How different is it? Because all these guys are NFL players, and how different is it when you miss one? I think the Chiefs, the margin's pretty slim when Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's out and they have to go to Darrell Williams. Derrick Henry is like the one guy who he's such a game changer that I think even the never draft a running back in the first round guys are like, well, if that guy was there though, that might be different. I just think he's so far above everyone else who's playing that position right now.
He's a throwback, like with McDowell aside, because he's still in his 30s. But, for us who are men of a certain age, 40 and above, you remember those guys, those Eddie George, Adrian Peterson in his prime. These are the guys that you just feed, regardless of what. If it's 3rd and 10, you're still feeding these guys. And you watch Derrick Henry, you think of football in the 80s and the 90s, those running backs that would just get the ball consistently and just rip off chunks of yards. If you love old school football, you got to love Derrick Henry.
I go back farther than that, Herbie. I think he reminds me of Earl Campbell, just the strength with which he runs, and listen, even folks older than me would say Jim Brown, because you just couldn't bring him down with one guy. So this plays into what the Chiefs injury report, which we usually get to, but now with Anthony Hitchens seemingly, do we think he's going to miss the game with the triceps problem? And what do the Chiefs do at linebacker? Because when we're talking about rushing defense, certainly it starts up front and trying to plug some holes, but this game is a linebacker game on defense, and we know that the Chiefs have had all kinds of problems at that position. So let's start with what Anthony Hitchens, where he is physically, and then what the Chiefs might do with or without him against Derrick Henry and the Titans.
Well, Hitchens and Sam McDowell and I were out there at practice these last 2 days, and he appeared yesterday with a with a brace. He had his arm up in a sling, and 2 straight days of not practicing an arm in a sling does not bode well for his availability Sunday against the Titans. The Chiefs do have options there. You got Ben Neiman, you've got Willie Gay Jr., you've got Nick Bolton, and those guys are your starters in the base. Dorian O'Daniel, your special teams guy. But, I think they're probably going to end up pulling up Darius Harris from the practice squad to bolster some depth there at the linebacker position. And he's not the only injury they're dealing with. Tyreek Hill and Joe Thuney did not practice these past 2 days, but I think what the Chiefs are going to do is going to mirror what they did in week 6 when they didn't practice the first 2 days, but they returned on Friday. So you're probably going to see these guys out on the field. The last injured person is Michael Burton. He didn't practice either. He's got a left pec strain.
And Kelsey's a little banged up, but he met the media yesterday, so he's not banged up enough that he would disqualify him from speaking to reporters.
Which usually doesn't take much, Blair. So he must be feeling pretty good.
That's right. Right. All right, but let's talk about the linebackers. To me, you need speed and strength here. And when I look at the linebacker crew, that to me is Nick Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. But they are the least experienced of the linebackers. They're the ones that would be most susceptible, I would think, to play action, passing, which the Titans do well with Ryan Tannehill. I mean, we have to mention that is absolutely a part of their game. And I think the Titans can take advantage of inexperienced linebackers, but I don't know. I don't see them with an opportunity to slow down Derrick Henry unless you've got these fast physical linebackers in Bolton and Gay. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, just sure tacklers too. But Blair, I think you mentioned the most important part, which is the play action. I mean, the Titans do so much damage with Ryan Tannehill and play action. He sells it really well, and also everybody falls for it because they're trying to stop Derrick Henry. But they've got 2 good receivers now. We'll see if the health status of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, but they've got some guys you have to account for. So I think that the play action part with 2 young linebackers is going to be the most difficult adjustment that those 2 guys are facing this week, particularly Willie Gay, who's still working his way back from injury, didn't play a lot of snaps last year, only played 18 snaps last week in his second game back. He just hasn't had a lot of NFL action, and I don't think he's probably seen play action that's as good as what he's going to see on Sunday.
One thing too about those receivers, they're big, and when they get downfield, I think that whether it's, Rashad Fenton and, the corners are going to have to fight for the ball. They're going to have to be physical when the ball's in the air and knock it down as best they can. Cause they might be alone a lot because of that play action that you guys are just talking about.
Yeah. And something else to that point that Steve Spagnuolo mentioned yesterday during his availability was the size of those wide receivers makes them really good blockers as well. And a lot of times Derrick Henry gets into the secondary. So you're relying on your cornerbacks and safeties to get off blocks. And so that's I was surprised the depth he went to in that point, because he sort of alluded to the strategy there, which is you've got to, make a move on the receivers before Derrick Henry gets to you, because if you're on a block, you can't reach out an arm and bring this guy down. So that's why so often when Derrick Henry gets into the secondary, it's usually 60, not just 20.
Brian LeBurge reminds us that Julio Jones has been dealing with a hamstring injury. Didn't play right in the second. He made that ridiculous catch against the Bills, the one that bounced off of Micah Hyde's helmet, and was just a great alert play. And that A.J. Brown's been dealing with an illness this week. Titans are a banged up football team. They are dealing with a lot of injuries. Chiefs have a few, but the Chiefs looks like they're going to get a couple of players back, and that has an impact on this defense, doesn't it, Herbie?
Yeah, absolutely. And the 2 big ones, obviously, are Chris Jones and Charvarius Ward. Jones has missed 2 straight games, but he's practiced his last two days. He's been limited, but they're probably just taking it easy on him as he gets his conditioning and his football shape back in the form there. Charvarius Ward has not played since week 2. I think Rashad Fenton, and then, Sam McDowell mentioned him. I think he's been a capable fill-in for him, but Ward's your starter for a reason. So, if you get these 2 guys back, the defense is on its way to finally getting healthy, and that's just something that they haven't been since week 1.
I wonder who's going to start there, to be honest, because Fenton played really well against Washington, like one of their best cornerback games of the season. And I think he played well enough to earn a start. And Charvarius Ward's coming back, and obviously him and L'Jarius Sneed are your two outside cornerbacks in base defense. Sneed's moved to the inside with Hughes, and I think Hughes and I think Fenton and Ward are your two outside guys when there's three receivers out there. But in that base defense, I wonder if we're going to see Fenton play some more snaps. And, they could sort of use the excuse that they're trying to ease Ward back into things. Like Herbie said, he hasn't played since week 2. But I think Fenton has earned the right for some more playing time right now.
All right. How about Chris Jones? Is this the return of Chris Jones? Does he return to the position he's been playing this year or to his original inside position? And is this if there is thought of Chris Jones going to tackle, is this the right opponent for that to happen?
Well, I think they're probably going to end up keeping him on the outside. Here's the key thing, and when I always think about this, they entered this offseason after they got Jarran Reed. Everything they've installed since OTAs and training camp has been with Chris, with Chris Jones on the outside in mind. And when you specifically ask Spagnuolo or even Andy Reid, what are they going to do about moving Chris Jones in the inside? We always get the we'll see, or we're not at that point yet. To answer your question, if he does play more snaps inside, we'll see. But it does make sense to put him in there, though. If Henry's your in between kind of in between the tackles kind of runner, you'd want one of your best defensive players in position to make the play. And in my opinion, that means Chris Jones inside as opposed to left defensive end, because they might run away from him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's right, but I don't know. You take that into account, the type of opponent they're playing. I don't know how much someone will have to remind me what kind of pressure the Bills got on Tannehill last week. Did they sack him? It didn't throw a lot because of Derrick Henry. They don't throw as much as other teams. So I just don't know where Chris Jones would be the most useful in a game like this. I mean, to me it's different against other opponents than it is against Tennessee, which is by far the best running team in the NFL.
They didn't sack him last week at all, Blair. Tannehill was not sacked in that game, and the Bills have had a more productive defensive line than the Chiefs have, because everybody in the NFL has had a more productive defensive line than the Chiefs have. I think, because Chris Jones' strength is not stopping the run. It's rushing the passer. So I think the fact that Mike Dana's played significantly better than probably anybody else on that defensive line, that you probably can, put Jones more on the inside than maybe you were planning on going into the season.
I agree. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Okay, look, if we were doing this show in Nashville today, they wouldn't be spending all this time talking about Derrick Henry and the Titans offense. They would be discussing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, what the Chiefs have been able to do, especially in the second half of last week's game. That was kind of a sigh of relief moment, I think, for certainly for Chiefs fans, because I don't know what the conversation was among you guys in DC at halftime, but I started thinking about draft position for the Chiefs for next season. And hey, this way at least they won't be drafted 30th or 32nd. They're going to get a good draft pick. And then the second half happened, and as you couldn't have drawn it up any better. on both sides of the ball, really, for Patrick Mahomes and company. So too small a sample size, one half of one game, to think that with no turnovers, to think that this is the Chiefs team we're going to see going forward, or do we, do you have to continue to consider how they played before that and be a little bit skeptical going into Sunday's game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was waiting for this part of the show. We've been talking about injuries a lot, and Derrick Henry a lot, and he's obviously a problem for the Chiefs. But the Titans secondary is beat to bits, and this may be a game that Mahomes just goes buck wild on that, and they've got enough injuries there that it's almost like they could have the right strategy and just not have the personnel to pull it off, and that's a big problem, especially when the Chiefs know it, and can just deploy Tyree, Kelsey. We might see, this might be a game where we see a lot from, I thought Hardman made one of the best plays. I'm not going to say it's the best play he's ever made as a Chief, but it was one of the better plays that he's ever made as a Chief, that route down the right sideline, and he kind of used his body to create space and let Mahomes drop it in there. I just think they might get things going a little bit more than they have. And they've been scoring at an outrageous rate. It's just been the turnovers, right? So, I think that this might be a game where we see him break out a little bit.
Also, on that Hardman play, the reach that he had on the ball, he had to extend to get it. I thought that was a nice part of the play as well. And Kelsey said as much yesterday, did he not? That he's not worried about the offense, and everything's going well except the turnovers. They're moving the ball, they're scoring. Aren't they still, in certain analytics, atop the NFL? And was it points? Is it points per drive?
Points per drive. Although I think the Bucs overtook them in offensive DVOA on Football Outsiders this last week, but a lot of metrics have them still as the best offense in the league. That includes all the turnovers. It's so weird to say this, but I don't see the turnovers as this trend that's going to carry through these 17 weeks, even though it's carried through this last month. The evidence suggests, well, they're turning the ball over 3 or 4 times every game, so they're going to continue to turn the ball over. I just don't see the way they're turning the ball over as something that's, like I said, an alarming trend that they're going to have to be dealing with in a month from now. But I said the same thing last week, and then they turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. So, Mahomes is not taking more chances than what he's taken in the past. That 8th interception, the most recent one, I think is, the outlier in all this, because that was just a really weird decision. But otherwise, his decision-making process has been pretty good. So I don't see this as something that we're going to be talking about every week, even though we've talked about it every week so far.
I think what's weird about that is if this was 2018, I think we would look at this as just the natural progression of a young quarterback, and they're going to have some turnovers and whatever. But every year, including Patrick Mahomes, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, but the Alex Smith years before that, but every year that Andy Reid has been the coach here, the Chiefs have had a better than league average turnover rate. And I think maybe this is just a different way of saying what Sam just said, but I still trust that more than 6 games, actually 5 games. So I don't think they had any turnovers in the opener against Cleveland. It's kind of the same group, and look, when flukes keep happening, maybe they're not flukes, but I still, like Sam said, the second interception in Washington and then the one in Baltimore are just egregious, stupid, can't do it. But the rest of them kind of weird, and some of that's just like sort of the natural, when the bullets are flying, sort of chaos of the NFL. I just I think I saw this, that in the last 20 years or something like that, the only team with a better points per possession number than the Chiefs this year was that 2007 Patriots team. So you'll take that.
The team went undefeated during the regular season.
Yeah. So I think they're fine too.
They're at a better points per possession than they were in Mahomes' MVP year. I mean, they're at better points per possession than they were in the Super Bowl year. And again, this is with the turnovers factored in there. I really think the Chiefs losing games has prompted a lot of people to talk about the way they're being defended, because it is different. It's the stuff that the Bucs were doing. Everybody knew that was going to come because the Bucs shut them down. And there's this sort of, implication that it's working because the Chiefs are 3-3, but the Chiefs are moving the ball just fine. the whole point of that defense is to force the Chiefs to make more plays and then hope that they make a mistake. And the Chiefs have just made some mistakes that is uncharacteristic of them. You know, if they just remain patient and take a 10 play drive, they're fine. I mean, their offense can move the ball fine. There has not been a defense yet that has just been able to stop them on their own. You know, that the Chiefs have helped them out too much.
And aren't they leading the NFL in third down conversions?
Yeah, that's correct as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they're putting themselves in a lot of third down positions, but they're keeping drives alive until until the end of some of them, and they have this silly turnovers.
Yeah, the third down thing is interesting, Blair, because it's something we all anticipated going into the season. Is would they have more options on third down with 5 new offensive linemen, and they have. You know, third and short has become much more manageable for them than it was last year. I mean, the short yardage was kind of their Achilles heel last year. They couldn't run the ball up the middle. We've seen them almost every game, including on a fourth down in Washington, just run the ball straight behind the center, a rookie center, Creed Humphrey, and they've been really successful doing that stuff. That's one of the reasons they've been so good on third down this year.
That fourth down run was by Darrell Williams, who I thought had a really nice game in his first NFL start. Herbie, so Darrell Williams continues to he'll be the guy again, correct? And I actually think we'll see a little bit more Jerick McKinnon. You don't make plays like the one real nice opportunity he had on the reception. It was a third and 4, and he picks up the first down because he second efforts it as well as he did. I got to think he's earned a few more attempts as well.
Yeah, surprising power from Jerick McKinnon on that play there. You know, put the shoulder down and driving in there for the first down on the left sideline. He will probably get more plays. I mean, his snap counts obviously have gone up because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's injury. But, you know, Darrell Williams will continue to be the guy that they're going to rely on in the featured role. But, you know, McKinnon, when he signed, we all said, hey, he's a good change of pace type running back, and that's probably what they're going to be using him for.
Hey, and also let's bring up. Looks like Mike Remmer is going to start again this week.
Oh yeah, Mike Remmers will be the guy. You know, when you trot him out there for a press conference, he'll be the guy. And you know, Lucas Niang is, as Eric Bieniemy says, will have that chance to learn. You know, it's an opportunity for him to get quality time and just sit back and just watch what's going on.
I've never heard an offensive coordinator frame it as a positive that a guy was benched, but Eric Bieniemy did his damnedest to make it seem like Lucas Niang has been promoted to the bench.
So is this a thing is Mike Remmers the new starter at right tackle until he loses the job?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Okay, interesting. Overall, though, offensive line playing pretty well this year, right? The new offensive line, especially in the middle. You mentioned Creed Humphreys a little while ago. They've that is turning into quite a good draft pick. And he had the one bad snap earlier this year. I can't remember who it was against, but otherwise, it just seems like he's a tough-nosed guy and doing well in the middle. So. All right, as many have suggested, Roy was the first. Zelensky, another no punt game coming up here. Others have suggested a high-scoring game. I absolutely think we're going to see a high-scoring game. What was the score of the game in Nashville a couple years ago? The regular season game was like 35-32, and the game ended on a couple of fluky plays. The Chiefs couldn't get a field goal off or had a block. I can't remember exactly what happened, but goofy things happened.
Both.
Is that right?
Yeah, once they couldn't get the field goal off, another time it was blocked. The game-tying one was blocked. They missed a fourth down play. Brian Tannehill went off on them in the fourth quarter. I think there were about like a dozen plays in the final 3 minutes, whatever it was, that you felt like if one of them went the Chiefs' way, they would have been okay in that game. That's been, in my opinion, the worst loss in the Mahomes era. The game that just made no sense for them to lose.
They also had that bad snap, if I remember correctly, because they made James Winchester available in the locker room.
They had I think it was that fourth down, wasn't it, where they had the play call was like it was a one read call to Demetrius Harris.
Blake Bell. It was Blake Bell. No, I asked Andy Reid about that game because what was interesting is that's the last game they lost in 2019.
Right.
And Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were both really good on that topic. It's a story I wrote for Sunday's paper, but they felt like they played their best because everybody had to take ownership of that. They had to endure some criticism, and their backs were against the wall. And historically, Mahomes feels like this team has played its best when its collective back is against the wall. They feel like they're in a really similar spot now. They both, Travis Kelce and Mahomes, talked about just feeling familiar with this Tennessee game. And, of course, they only played that way for a half in Washington. And 2019, they played that way for 9 weeks. But getting back to the Andy Reid play, his response when I asked him about it was, he said, I made a really bad play call at the end of that game on 4th down. That's one I'd like to have back. Which was interesting because I think we all even debated about whether or not that was the right play call. I think Sam wrote a column that said that was the wrong play call. So now Andy Reid's finally on board. He read Sam's stuff.
Game on the line. 81 is not the number I'm thinking you're calling for.
So that was always because I actually wrote a story the other way. But that was actually my point, is that nobody thought that Blake Bell was going to get the ball. The Chiefs had done so well with deceiving an opponent that I didn't mind the call as much as a lot of other people did. But if the guy who called the play now is even saying it's the wrong call, then it's probably the wrong call.
Probably read it on his laptop on the plane on the way home. I imagine.
He read the Insta was up.
Listen, Tennessee played Monday night, right? So the short week for the Titans, that's a factor. I think they have more injuries to deal with, especially in the secondary, as Sam McDowell mentioned earlier. That's going to play a factor in this game. I was half kidding, but I'm serious. If the Chiefs can hold Derrick Henry to somewhere around the average of what the Chiefs give up rushing in a game, I think that bodes well for the Chiefs as well, and take their chances with Ryan Tannehill as the guy that's going to try to beat them. Would everybody here pick the Chiefs if you had to do it for the game? Because I think I would. I think I'd pick them by field goal or 4.
Yeah, I think so.
Same spot, Blair. I think it's a close game, but I pick the Chiefs.
I'll go the opposite direction. I'm taking the Titans.
Well, they were listen, that Bills victory opened my eyes. I didn't think they were going to go get that one. They were impressive, and for Tennessee, this is a statement game for them. They win on Sunday. They will have beaten the 2 teams in the AFC Championship game last year. They're already going to win the division. They're the first obvious winner of a division this year. That division's crap, the AFC South. So they win this game. They're thinking about what their seed's playing for number 1 seed, I think, in the AFC. So, but if the Chiefs win, look, they're go over 500, and with the Giants coming to Arrowhead, the lowly Giants coming to Arrowhead the following Monday, and Chiefs are back on track, but maybe.
One guy that's I'm hearing the voice of Randy Kovitz in my head all week, and Randy's seen a lot of football and he's covered a lot of NFL seasons, and one thing he always talked about is the momentum of a schedule and how the wins of that schedule can sort of guide a season left or right, up and down. And I always think about that because there's been times I think that's the dumbest thing, but it turns out to be true, And so I'm starting to listen to that a little bit more. And I just wonder if you have a win like that on Monday night, and now you have a short week to prepare for another game. I don't know. I think the human nature, human tendency, I think it's hard to get up and do that again, sort of on short notice. That's what I'm thinking about this week.
I also like Chiefs on the road. Check out their road record over the last few years. It's better than their Arrowhead Stadium record, which is something. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Lyle Harris, great comments. Ron Lockler, thanks for checking in from Germany. What is it, about 4 in the afternoon there? Thanks to Sam Mellinger, Sam McDowell, and Herbie Teope for lending their expertise. Big thanks to Candy Bolden and Marcus Dorsey, who produce today's show, and Marcus is going to do the podcast later today. We will talk to you again on Sunday afternoon, sometime between 5 and 5:30, after the Chiefs play the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. Until then, thank you very much. That'll do it for today and this week on SportsBeat KC. Thanks to our production staff of Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Also, thanks to McClatchy's Candy Bolden and Marcus Dorsey for putting together today's show. A tip of the cap to Herbie, Teope, Sam McDowell, and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. So let's talk about the morning sports edition. If you're not seeing it, you're really missing out. On kansascity.com, you go to the Stars e-edition. That's a replica of the printed newspaper on your screen that comes with your digital subscription. Well, now there's an updated sports section produced separately that goes along with it. When you open the e-edition, there's a box in the upper right-hand corner that says All Editions. Click on that, and you can access anywhere from, 15 to 50 pages of sports. Maybe you get a link in your email. I do. It's there by 6 a.m. every morning. But however you get it, it is access to complete coverage of the previous day's sports news, features, statistics, everything. It's fantastic. Hey, thanks for reading the Star and listening to our podcast lineup. You're helping support the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City, and we cannot produce programs like SportsBeat KC without you. We'll be back on Monday with another episode breaking down Sunday's Chiefs-Titans game.